Shalom and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Yehuda Michael. I am a program director at MCTC, Mishav Israel Agency for International Development Cooperation at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is welcoming you to Spotlight on Women Leaders of the World series. On this series, we invited leading women from all over the world, and these leading women are sharing their experience or their impacts in the society. If you have any question for our today's guest, please write it down into Facebook comment section and we will ask those questions on behalf of you during the interview. Once again, thank you all for joining us. Let me add our guest for today. Here we go. As a kid, all of us dream about being something. Some of us say we want to be a doctor when we grew up. Some of us say we want to be an engineer, but not always we end up being what we dreamed of as we were a kid. But our guest today, when she was at 12, she was asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she answered, I quote, I want to be a pilot, travel around the world and fly my own plane. Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored to have with us today Capt. Irene Mora. Capt. Irene Mora is the CEO of Mora Air Service Inc. and a founder of Wings of Hope Foundation in the Philippines. Capt. Mora is a Filipino pilot, activist, and philanthropist. Capt. Era is one of the 100 influential Filipinos across the world, as well as Capt. Mora is the pioneer woman who broke many stereotypes in the Philippines by setting a personal example. We will hear a lot from her today. Welcome and shalom, Capt. Mora. It is a pleasure to have you in the program, and thank you also for taking time on your busy schedule.
Thank you so much. Shalom. Tudaraba. Michael, thank you so much for inviting me here. To my Mashab family, thank you so much. I was so excited when I heard that I'm going to be joining this Mashab forum, and I'm here. My name is Irene. It was too much for your introduction, but yes, I was just a little girl when I started thinking that I would like to fly, and now here I am. I'm a pilot, and I can share so many things about how to be a pilot and how to be a woman in a man's field.
Wow, that is really, really amazing. We are really want to hear more from you during today's interview. I just want to mention one thing that Capt. Era was in our Women Leader Conference in 2018. She represented the Philippines. I want to thank you also for taking part during that conference, and thank you for coming back again to do this interview.
I know, Michael, it has been such an unforgettable journey of my life. Mashav really taught me so many valuable lessons. It's part of my journey. And wherever I go, Mashav in Israel is in my heart. So I brought Mashav with me and I brought Israel with me. Wherever I go, it was a fantastic experience in my life. I've met a lot of wonderful people from different parts of the world. And of course, the Mashab family, it will never become like this without every one of you guys behind Mashab, and how they do it is amazing. And I always brought that lesson into where my origin is and wherever I go in the world.
Thank you so much. It's great to hear. Let me start by asking you my first question. My first question will be, can you tell us about your current position as a CEO of Mora Air Service Inc., where it starts and how that begins the whole story?
Well, as a CEO of Mora Air Services Incorporated, I started managing the company about 15 years ago. I started the two companies. This is a Mora group of companies where we had a flying school. I am an instructor. I'm a pilot instructor that teaches pilots from around the world. I teach them how to fly and then put them to the airlines of different airlines of the world. So for that 20 years in academy, I was very fortunate that we let go of academy before the world crisis came. So far, I left with something that Mora Air Services Incorporated is under the management of military supplies. We supplies to our government of all military supplies from shoes, uniforms, GPS, everything that military is using. So we bid to the governments and we dress them up. So Mora Air Services is one of those. Plus, we have the helicopter flights, we have the VIP flights, we have the sightseeing tours, and at the same time, um, well, the financing part of it is what keeps us busy right now because we partnered to a global financing company where we help many business from small to big entrepreneur. So as a CEO of the company, it taught me so much to have my own time of management, discipline at the same time. It's not a very easy task because as a pilot in the Mora Air Services, as one of the chief pilots, I am flying at the same time on the ground I'm managing. So it is some kind of like a balance of many different kind of discipline and relationship on people. So that is one thing that I can share with all those women and men who wanted to be, a CEO at the same time. I was talking yesterday to another pilot friend of mine because of this crisis that happened. So they were trained to be a pilot from the day, at the age of 17 or 18. They were trained to be a pilot, and their focus was just train to be a pilot in BND Airlines. So now, when that crisis happened, so many of my colleagues, so many of my friends around the globe lost their job. So how Irene Mora cope up with the crisis? I was very thankful first to my parents because my father taught me how to be a survivor, how to not focus into just one skills, how to just not focus into something that it will cage you in the box. I think that being a pilot taught me to be an entrepreneur as well. And that being an entrepreneur brought me to the journey of how am I going to manage the corporates, the company that it has a lot of things to do in a man-dominated world. So it is a very challenging job. It is a very challenging task for me. But I knew that the moment I sit down into my chair, I have to do my job. And there is no any other option but to succeed. And there is no any other choices but to succeed and to make things happen. So this globe worldwide crisis, it affects, as you can see, many pilots lost their jobs, many companies closed down. But I was prepared 20 years ago before the crisis came that whatever happened, I have another means of skills or opportunity for me to do. It's like, jumping out of an airplane. What is your alternative place to land if there's something happen? So it is upon the training and it is upon the skills of you since you were young on how are you going to reinvent yourself day by day. So as a CEO and as a standing CEO as of today, it's a very challenging, but I love it every day because if there's no challenge, I wouldn't like it. And that's how I can share with so many of you who wants to stay in your to stay in your designated task or your chosen field. You have to be able to have your passion first. You have to be very passionate about what you do. And if you're very passionate about it, there's no doubt that you can always reinvent yourself no matter what crisis, no matter what happened.
Great. That is really amazing. I bet there's the pandemic is impacting so many businesses. Airline industry is one of the biggest that impacted by the COVID-19. I hope we're gonna get into this and a good days to come. But that's a great insight you shared with us. Let me ask you the second question. Tell us about your second venture, Wings of Hope Foundation. Where did it start? How did it start? And what you guys are doing actually in the foundation?
Wow, Wings of Hope Foundation has a very good story that I could share to the world on how it started. Since the day I was born, I had always been very fascinated about, helping people. And I didn't know that myself today will brought me to the journey where I embrace a huge responsibility. Yet it is also a wonderful gift of life for me to be able to share, to be able to touch many people, to be able to share the education that we in the past never had. It's wonderful. And Wings of Hope, I would say that without my wing woman, Ambassador Effie Matitiao, an ambassador of Israel to the Philippines, was looking for someone before he retired in the Philippines and finished his diplomatic life. We happened to had the opportunity to meet, and when he started saying that I'm finished with the Miss Universe, I'm done with all these beauty pageants. I've never met a woman pilot since I came to the Philippines, or much more. And when I travel around the world, I never met many women pilot in my life, and you are my wings of hope. So begin to know the ambassador of Israel. We met the second time, and he found out about my life story. It was quite much more interesting than just being a pilot, because being a pilot is just a career for Irene Mora. It is my career, and he found out that I also have a children and adopted children that I raised on my own. And he was very fascinated about that I thought he is an activist, he is a feminist, he is a kind of ambassador that was very feminist and support many women empowered themselves. And in my journey and in the chosen career that I chose, there was not so many men that are, very positive about women empowered, about women who wanted to do their own career, who wanted to shine in the limelight, and who wanted to show their talent. And I think he probably saw that shining star and that uniqueness of my personality. And then he told me that you are my wings of hope. He found out that we already had a foundations. I've been working in our foundation for almost 25 years, where we help children to have a beautiful smile. We have we operated so many children in the Philippines that has cleft palate, because that is actually one of the pandemic that we have in the country. It is more than the virus, where you can go to an island that children couldn't smile. So one time I was flying in one island, and I saw a child that, talk to me and say, I wish someday I can have a beautiful smile like yours so I can get married and kiss someone. And from that day, it made me wonder, that's like, wow. So it inspired me to invite many doctors from around the world, and they joined to have a medical mission to visit different islands in the Philippines, where we stayed for a couple of weeks and gather all those children that have a cleft palate. So that's how we started. And so as my years goes by as a pilot, every year of my sabbatical, I actually donated my time to would rather go a humanitarian service, or I can do something to the community, or at least to do something. If I have something I can share my time. If there is so many people that celebrating their birthday, but myself, I celebrated it to the field, where I can share it to the community, or to the neighborhood, or to any other country, with regards to education, health, and farming. So I never leave those kind of elements in my life. So that's how the Wings of Hope started. So when I met my wingman, which is Ambassador, I know he will be watching right now, and I'd like to say hello to him and to his wife, an ambassador also. And those were the journey of my life that I will never forget. He's also the reason why I was introduced to Mashav, and he was the one who gave me the keys to meet all those beautiful people on this planet. And when Ambassador Evi Matichev sent me to Israel, 2018 into the Mashav, and I became a Mashav family. Exactly, I learned more that there's so many things to learn more, and this Wings of Hope has a purpose. Why Wings of Hope was born and why Wings of Hope is there, and all those right people that connected the Wings of Hope. I am very thankful that I am one instrumental personality or instrumental person or a messenger of hope to build bridges of hope to the less fortunate, to the youth and the elderly.
Well, it's very inspirational story, and I'm happy that there's also Israeli influence into it. So very amazing. Let me move to the third question I want to ask you. That would be, you were the first Filipino who went to a zero gravity and passed the training, and you also set up a lot of you pioneered a lot of activities within the Philippines. What was that look like to be the first and to be the pioneer in many fields in the Philippines?
Michael, to be honest with you, to be very, very honest with you and share my authentic self of experience, this is my very first time that I will share the zero gravity training to the world, because I know that Mashav has so many intelligent people that understand about about um, many things, about science, about your want to achieve your journey, because in Israel there's so many women empowered, there's so many women that discovered themselves. It is mandatory to be an army and hold a gun and float in, in the sky. So my experience in zero gravity is also one of a lifetime experience that I would love to share to everyone, that when you want to dream on something, there is no such impossible, because the zero gravity training to me brought me so much confidence to myself. It opens so many doors of opportunity. It's opened so many doors of learning. It took away my fear. It took away my fear to the unknown. And most people on the planet and most people that I've met in my life, they have their sort of fear. And the zero gravity training for me destroyed all that fear of the unknown. So the unknown is always fear to everybody. But to my experience, when I had that zero gravity experience, it made me feel like I was weightless. And everything that you imagine, everything that I imagined when I was a child that I want to be an astronaut, made me feel like I was one. It made me feel that I've experienced being weightless, like I've met so many astronauts over there in my training. I've attended the lesson on how to be an astronaut and how to actually navigate, a space shuttle, and how to actually, control yourself in many danger. It was a very educational experience for me. That is one lifetime of experience.
Wow, a great perspective to learn from. Thank you so much for sharing that. I actually have a follow-up question. Did you see changes now involving women in a traditionally man-associated task? Because a lot of things you're trying to do was mainly traditionally been masculine. Which challenges you faced?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it since I was one of the pioneering woman pilots when I came back to the Philippines. I studied in the United States. I flew different kind of airplanes in America, in Japan, in Malaysia, in Kenya, in different part of the world. And when I came to the Philippines, I was the very first woman who was, transitioning my pilot license. And it was a big shock to the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines in my country, meeting one woman in a dominated, man-dominated field. It was not an easy journey for me to get there. It was like you are that kind of dust that get into a small needle, and you have to penetrate that field that you want to play. It was not a very easy. A lot of turbulence, a lot of tears, a lot of difficult moments on how are you going to position yourself, whether you want it to be a feminine or a masculine, or like they will always misinterpret you as a lesbian because in this country there was no woman pilot. And for me, I think once you break that stereotype kind of thinking, then you also discover the authentic self of you, that, well, I'm a woman, 100% a woman, and I'd love to discover something that also men can do. So if I didn't do it, if I didn't make it or failed, then I will be an example to the rest of the people behind me. And for that courage that I have in myself, we're getting into the men's world. You have to be one of the boys. You have to use your intellect level in order for you to be able to communicate with the men's world, because they don't have the emotion, they don't have all this kind of very feminine kind of thing, and they don't communicate that way. So it took me some time to understand that this is the field I chose. My father once told me, you have chosen a very difficult path in your life. So I want to be sure that you really like it 100%. And I will be always here to support you. I just don't want you to cry. I don't want you to come back home crying and a failure. So I remember the words, and it was one of a good instrumental inspiration for me from my father, that not just because you are a woman, yet you are the only girl in the family, you will be spoiled and you will not be doing something what we do. So I was one of a trained Boy Scout of my dad at home. It's like, to begin with, I had a very good background of training how to deal with men, because I grew up with all men, in our house. I grew up in a neighborhood where all are boys, 12 of them, and I'm the only girl. So I I felt that being in aviation world, it was not that stranger place for me to be in. And when I get there, I passed my whole training in America. I've shown that it's really my chosen field. I love to be in the sky. And I came back to the Philippines and built my own academy. It was an academy that taught pilots from different parts of the world to be a pilot. So far, I have trained many of them until the pandemic came and we sold the academy. And it was a beautiful journey. It was a beautiful journey. Many difficult turbulence. And the turbulence, the most difficult turbulence that I've learned in my life as a pilot is not up in the air. It is actually on the ground. Because up in the air, all what you have to do is just understand the theory of flights, and how are you going to understand, physics. It's 99.9% physics, which is really my favorite to talk about and to speak about. So on the ground, it is a lot more difficult to understand human behavior. There is human behavior, attitude that you need to polish your pilot before you release them how to be a pilot. It is not a very easy task for me to polish their attitude. So you have to be able to know what you like. You have to be very passionate about it. At the age of 3 years old, I saw my aunt holding my photos. I was holding an airplane already. So I already knew that I was born to fly at that age. And at the age 13, we had a slam book. You probably never heard of a slam book. It is like a Facebook as of today, you know?
Oh,
So it is a new technology of Facebook. During those days, we only have this slam book. It's a book that you give it to your friends, to someone close to you that you've met. And there are some questions, your address, your crushes, people that you love, and what do you want to be? You know, I still remember everything I wrote there. Everything I wrote there exactly precise of what exactly happened to me, except for the crush, because I never met him afterward. So this is something very, very, very inspiring. And take note, 99.9% of everything you wrote, everything, everything you say, 99.9% will exactly what will happen. So I wrote down at the age of 13, I want to be a pilot. When they asked me what was my dream, what do I want when I grow up? I want to be a pilot, travel all over the world, understand different languages. So far, I speak many of them, 7. I speak Japanese fluently. I can read and
wow.
write. I speak Arabic. I can read and write. I can even pray for their Quran. And I
Wow.
can read the Quran. I speak Mandarin and Portuguese and Spanish and English, and it brought me so much lesson in life, that so many things to discover about the talent that I was born for, the purpose that I was born for. And that is exactly the reason why, when I've done everything what I want those age, I've done it already. And so now the Wings of Hope is the journey beyond sharing and giving, and everything that I wanted for Wings of Hope. And the person that who joined the Wings of Hope has the same values, has the same perspective, that we all can make a difference.
Wow, it's very informative. I personally very impressed. You speak 7 language, you do a lot of work. I'm struggling. I really want to learn language, but I'm not good on that. Anyways.
I'll teach you with one. Begin with Israel. When you say shalom,
Great.
toda
You see?
raba.
It worked out for good.
Yeah.
Great. I want to ask you a question. Actually, when you speak, I just remember some question. All this journey, I bet there's a lot of challenges you faced. What have been your biggest challenge, and how did you overcome that biggest challenge? Just you dreamed to be a pilot, but you didn't be a pilot overnight. It takes you time to go there. What was the biggest challenge you faced during this period?
Michael, my biggest challenges back in America was when I first entered into the aircraft. That I was so nervous. I was trying to prove myself that I can really do it and I will make it, because this is what I want. My instructor was a strict Russian pilot, who are a MiG pilot. Can you imagine the experience? They are really strict Russian. They're one of good pilots that I've experienced, have flown with. And I was very nervous, but then I learned that when I understand the theory of flights from the ground, I had a very good relationship with my flight instructor. He doesn't make me feel nervous. I chose a very good flight school in America where women are more than welcome. But the biggest challenge is, how are you gonna get rid of that fear? And how are you going to fly alone when they release you solo to fly this plane to be called a real pilot? That was my biggest challenge, because in America it's not something that, okay, you know, I mean, you will be a pilot right now, and we will release you without training, you know, we'll give you the license without training. In America, you are on your own once they release you. So the biggest challenge was my first solo, and my flight instructor released me from El Cajon, California to Carmona. So in that Carmona, I have to find the way on how to land the airplane. And I was on my own. So the biggest challenge is, Am I gonna land this plane alone? This is the very first time that my instructor kicked me out of the plane, kick me out alone. He get out of the plane. You're on your own now. So be sure you get there and you bring the plane back. I had no clue he was going to release me that day. I had no clue that they were planning to release me, that I was going to fly on my own. When I took off and I was flying on my own, I realized then that you're on your own now, Irene, and you hold accountability, responsibility, and awareness. This is only one choice. You have to bring this plane safe, and you have to land this plane safe back again to where your origin is. And you have to prove yourself this is what you've chosen that you love the most. So while flying from El Cajon to Carmona, I started singing, I started saying a lot of things, I started talking to myself, like what we are talking right now. I started talking, I started understanding my equipments right in front of me. I started talking one by one, from 7 up, 7 down. And so here is the airport coming down. It took me minutes to decide that if I won't decide to land this plane now, then my destination will be underground. So I have to actually talk to myself that this is me, this is you. You got to prove it that you can do it. You have to be able to prove it to yourself before you prove to others, before you prove to your friends, before you prove to whoever your enemies, whoever person who bullied you when you were young. You got to be able to learn how to prove it to yourself that you can make it. Nobody in the world will make it for you but ourselves. So that's the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is our own self, not actually other people, not actually your instructor, not actually your parents, not actually your enemies back. No, it is ourself. And I conquer all of my fear. I conquer all of that in myself. And that's the most challenging part for me that I've encountered through my life of flying. It was myself only.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for sharing. I want to switch into a personal question now. What would
Oh,
you
okay.
tell your youngest self today?
Today, what would
Yeah,
I say?
yeah, for your youngest self, I don't know, when
I
you were
think I
teenage.
would I would say to my younger self that, Irene, I have to invest to nurture more myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. In my youth and my younger days, I have to equip self to combat the challenges and pressing demands of the future. Use time and talents wisely. For you, younger Irene, that you have to realize what important things in life, that you when you were younger, Irene, you only think of something what is today and how are you going to make money, how do you want to have a big house, how do you want to have a big car, how do you want to have a plane. But in my younger days, I would rather say that word to the authentic self of me now, to the younger Irene.
Great, thank you. My final question for you will be, what advice will you give to the next generation of women leaders?
What advice I can give to them is just to follow your heart, and also try to find balance into your mind, in your heart, and seek your passion. Never do the thing that you don't love. Never allow anybody to enter in your life that would say you can't do it and you can't make it. You have to prove it to yourself first before others that yes, if others can't do it, I will be the first person to do it. You have to have that good stubbornness in your head that when others say no, you have to say, I can make it and I can do it. So the younger people as of today should have the right attitude, should have the right attitude to everybody, because if there is no such right attitude that's been built from you from the very beginning, there is no right way for you to reach your goal in the long run. Because the right attitude you build today is also the right harvest you will make in the long run. So right attitude is the hardest, element to actually develop. Most people develop that along the way. I was very fortunate. I have my dad, I have my parents that really polished me at such a young age to have this right attitude, to actually, be the person, be kind and be the best human being first before you learn your skills. So if you have all that, your future is very clear. You follow your heart, you follow your instinct, be with the right company is very important. Be with the right person, be with the right mind, and most importantly, never lost hope.
Thank you, Captain Mora, for being with us and also sharing your experience. It is very much educational and also inspiring. I really want to thank you in person. Also, really want to thank you on behalf of MCTC. We do have a few questions actually from the audience. So my colleague Nuria Levy is just joining us now. So she will gonna ask a few questions that comes from the audience.
Sure, Michael, would love to. I would love to, please.
Okay, here we go.
Irene, it's such a pleasure to hear you speak. I'm one of the lucky ones that was able to meet you in person when you came here in 2018 during the Women's Leader Conference. So welcome, and thank you so much for your super inspiring talk and your words. It's really a treasure to hear you speak. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions that came up, okay? You have, throughout your talk, you have shown so much resilience in your life. You're so open-minded. You are inspiring entrepreneur. You have shown so much determination, and you have built so many different skills in your life, and you have bags of passion. And these are all amazing qualities that most of us wish to possess. And I wanted to ask you, what is it that you still have to do now?
You asked the right question. You asked the right question. What I still wanted to do is, I think that Wings of Hope can spread more of our seeds and wings, and spread my wings to different part of the planet where we can touch, connect, rise, and be able to establish and communicate and help many children of the world, youth in the elderly. We can build more bridges of hope. I think that is so much passion in me that still hasn't been getting out yet with regards to my being a human or a humanitarian. So there's a lot of things that I still want to do. I still want to go back there and see you and hug you again. I still want to go back to Mashav and learn many things, because I saw that Mashav has developed many unbelievable potential to so many people like me. And I'll never going to stop doing that as long as I'm alive. And yes, there's so many things to spread our wings.
Wonderful.
And do and make a difference.
Wonderful to hear that. That actually brings me to my next question. During your time here, you met a whole bunch of amazing ladies. And that network, has it brought you more ideas of what to do within the Winds of Hope or any other aspect of your career?
Wonderful. That is actually, I would love to share one of, they really connected through my life, and up to now we are like one sister, one family. We communicate, One of the person I'm communicating with from time to time is the Vice President of Liberia, Jewel Howard, and we are now connecting. And I'm on the process of sending her our memorandum of agreement for how to help Jewel Fish Foundation and Wings of Hope Foundation to build bridges of hope to their women and men that needed our services, and we'll be able to do that very soon. Another one is, of course, our friend, the media diva, which is Jacqueline Cacho. I know you're watching. Jacqueline Cacho in America. We contacted day by day, and we're doing a lot of um, reinventing ourselves through Zoom, through calling time to time. Our friend from Brazil, from Vietnam, from Honduras, from, I couldn't say, there's so many wonderful people from France, from and from Israel. Of course, those are already my family. No doubt that Israel will always be with me. Everybody says my grandma is Israelite, so I think I'm a Jew by blood. So that's why you're connected with Israel. So yes, I've connected, and we are exactly doing constantly, simultaneously, our information to each other on how are we going to build bridges of hope, and how we can be that kind of women that can make a difference and that can help to our society, especially the situation that we have today, where everything is frozen, when everything of us, where every power of our own self has been stolen. And I always speak to them that never lost hope, because if there's everything is taken away from us, the only thing that left is hope.
Indeed.
All religion has been demolished. There'll be no any other person that are talking or shouting or any kind of religions on the streets, but everyone's never think of there's hope. And if there's hope, you'll never run out of ideas. You will never run out of, how would I say, enthusiasm in your life. My father once told me, Irene, no matter what happened, never lost your enthusiasm in life. You have to be prepared for the rainy days, for the war, because the war is not only just throwing those kind of big weapons in the sky, but there's also war of your own self. Your own self, you have to be prepared that there is a lot of things there that you have to be prepared. So it's a matter of mind setting, that prepare yourself. And when you're in the right position, connection, and opportunity, there's always possibilities that we can be, rise again, be the person, be the companies we want to raise, and there's no such doubt. We can rebuild the city, and we can rebuild the whole universe again. As long as there is Mashab develops so many intelligent design, and I am so impressed. I always salute your education, especially I'm an advocate for education. I always want to go back to Mashab where I can learn more in advance. And definitely, it's never ending story. It's never going to end. As long as I am alive, I will commit myself to the wings of hope.
Thank you so much for that. And believe me, we only want for this pandemic to be over so we can bring you back again here to Israel. You
Exactly.
also, yes, you also mentioned the difficulties sometimes with human behavior and how to deal with people on the ground. It was actually harder up in the skies. And yet you have inspired so many women to take up flight. So I wanted to ask you, who would you say is your most accomplished of your trainees?
One of the accomplished women I've met in the journey of my life is the woman pilot that I taught right after me. she became the captain of Air Asia. She became the very first pioneering woman pilot who flown the big Airbus in my country also. Unfortunately, she was killed by her husband 2 years ago because of what you so-called difficulties of understanding human behavior, on how to accept women empowered, that you are better than your partner. Unfortunately, she was killed by her husband, and the husband is still in jail at the moment in Cebu City. And that friend of mine, she became like my wing woman. She excelled to the highest point where she exactly excelled more than men. And that's how I saw courage. That's how I saw intelligence. But so unfortunate, but that women like her who excel more and didn't have the opportunity to actually develop much more of our character and behavior. Where are we going to stand ourselves when we already accomplished your life? On how are you going to exactly handle your own self when you're already that in command of your life? There is what you call a human behavior that men, we are not yet in that level where men will understand at to the point where they can exactly have the open arms and say, welcome to the field of throne. But at this point, at this point of time, I've seen so many changes already that women excel. But the difficulties is the men, like men, how are you going to share your skills to many men? So there are human behavior. You have to be able to understand your the man's intellect. You have to understand their intellect level, and you have to work with them in your intellectual level. There's so many mistakes in hiring employees, pilots, that their mistake was not their skills. It is their behavior. It is their attitude. So we have a saying in aviator that when you're up in the sky, watch your altitude. On the ground, watch your attitude. I received a phone call early this morning from a colleague aviator and was in tears because they've flown so many flying hours time. They have flown so much and developed their skills through the years, but they were the first batch who's been deleted from the airlines company. And when I was trying to review their the reason why they had been deleted and not flying anymore was just because they have given some certain attitude that didn't meet the standard of each company. So human behavior has a big factor. As a CEO of our company and as a running foundation, as a running CEO and head of a Wings of Hope Foundation, we have to develop many of human behavior of many children. That way, they have skills in the future. Take note that as a CEO myself, I look on attitude. I look on the right attitude of the person first. When someone brought me their resume or how many hours they've flown, they wanted to fly with me. But as a person who run the fleet or a person who are in charge, you will always, what you call say, you have an instinct to detect the right attitude of every human beings, of every individuals. We're like, we all like an animals, where animals each other smell each other. And we as a human behavior, we have to always have that intelligence, especially if you are the CEO, if you are running your own company. Many people would keep their company by having that big diploma on the wall. I think I look at it because I can get a lot of people that has a lot of skills to train them, but you can never train attitude, because attitude is what you work for or what your background is. First, good attitude is an attitude learned from home.
As you said earlier on, and I have to say, you just have shown and shared such a powerful story, and you really bring us so much courage in your life. And as you mentioned earlier, that you really have to bring up your own accountability and responsibility. And I couldn't have put it better myself. There's so many women at this point in time, especially because of the pandemic, that they find themselves trapped and they're facing very difficult situations.
Absolutely.
So, indeed. I don't want to take more of your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here with us. Such an honor to have you. And I want to wish you all the very best on your next steps. And we all hope here at MCTC and Mashav to welcome you back very, very soon. Thank you, Irene. It's been lovely to have you.
Thank you so much, dear. Thank you so much. I have no enough words to say how thankful I am to you guys, to the people in Mashab. Michael, thank you for contacting me, connecting me to my family, to the Mashab, and to all the people that join us today. I am giving you this one last word that alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. Tuda raba, Israel. I love you all.
Yehuda.
Thank you, Nuria. Thank you also, Captain Mora, for being with us and also sharing your experience. Big thank you also for our audience from all over the world that following us in our Facebook channel, as well as in Mishav's Facebook channel. Please visit our social medias for common activities, as well as our website, which is www.mctc.mfa.gov.il. We do have a lot of online lectures coming up, so check it out. We're also going to have another guest in our Spotlight for Women Leaders of the World series next time. Once again, thank you so much, Captain Mora. It's a pleasure having you here in this program, and take care. Shalom.
Shalom, toda raba, Michael. Shukran. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. And I hope to see you all again soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Really appreciate it.